My beloved child, there are moments in life when the heart senses something before the mind can fully explain it. A quiet pause appears between words, a subtle shift in tone, a feeling that lingers long after a conversation ends. This story begins in one of those moments, when affection feels present, yet clarity feels distant. There is a person in your life whose presence brings warmth, but also confusion. Their words may sound caring, their gestures familiar, yet something about the exchange leaves you slightly unsettled. Not because they are openly unkind, but because consistency seems to slip through the cracks. What they offer feels partial, as if pieces are missing, even when intentions appear gentle on the surface. It's easy to dismiss this feeling. Many people do. We tell ourselves that everyone has complexities, that misunderstandings happen, that patience will eventually smooth everything out. And sometimes, that is true. But other times, the unease is not doubt, it is awareness slowly waking up. Emotional confusion rarely arrives loudly. It arrives softly, wrapped in mixed signals and unfinished conversations. It appears when care is shown just enough to keep hope alive, but never enough to bring peace. And in those moments, the heart quietly asks for honesty, first from others, and then from itself. As this reflection continues, a deeper understanding will gently unfold. Not to accuse, not to judge, but to help you recognize what your inner voice has been trying to tell you all along. There is a meaningful insight ahead, one that speaks to self-respect, emotional clarity, and the calm strength that grows when truth is finally acknowledged. Sometimes the heart holds on to patterns long before it understands them. You may notice how this person becomes attentive only at certain moments, present when it suits them, distant when depth is required. The connection feels like a tide that comes in just enough to be felt, then quietly pulls away before you can fully stand in it. This kind of emotional rhythm can be confusing because it imitates care without fully embodying it. It can make you question your own expectations, wondering if you are asking for too much when all you seek is steadiness. Over time, this subtle imbalance teaches the heart to wait, to adjust, to settle for fragments instead of wholeness. What makes this especially difficult is that nothing feels openly wrong. There are kind words, shared memories, and moments that feel real. Yet beneath them lies an unspoken truth. Intention is revealed not by intensity, but by consistency. When actions do not align with words, the silence between them begins to speak. This reflection is not about blame. It is about awareness. Emotional confusion often grows when one person invests clarity while the other benefits from uncertainty. Recognizing this is not a loss, it is the beginning of understanding your own emotional value. As you continue listening, an important realization will surface. One that reframes this connection not as a failure, but as a quiet lesson in self-trust and emotional balance. There comes a moment when reflection turns inward, not toward what the other person is doing, but toward what you have been allowing. This is often the hardest part to face, because it asks for honesty without self-criticism. It asks you to look gently at your own patience and ask why it has been stretched for so long. Emotional confusion can slowly train the heart to stay hopeful instead of grounded. You may find yourself interpreting small gestures as signs of change, or waiting for clarity that always seems just one conversation away. In this space, intention becomes blurred, not because you cannot see it, but because you have been giving it the benefit of the doubt again and again. What often goes unspoken is that some people are comfortable in emotional ambiguity. It allows them to receive care without offering commitment, closeness without responsibility. This does not always come from malice. Sometimes it comes from avoidance, uncertainty, or a reluctance to be fully present. Understanding this shifts something important within you. It replaces confusion with compassion, first for yourself. You begin to see that your desire for emotional clarity is not a weakness, but a strength that deserves respect. As this story continues, a quieter truth will emerge, one that invites you to honor your emotional boundaries and rediscover the calm that comes from valuing your inner peace. With awareness comes a subtle change in how you listen, not just to words, but to how you feel after they are spoken. You may notice that clarity brings relief, while uncertainty leaves a quiet heaviness behind. This contrast is important, because the body often understands what the mind is still processing. At this stage, the question is no longer about their intention alone. It becomes about alignment. A connection that nurtures you should leave space for growth, ease, and mutual understanding. When emotional effort flows in one direction, it slowly drains the joy that connection is meant to bring. This realization does not demand immediate decisions or dramatic endings. Sometimes, growth simply begins with seeing things as they are, without romanticizing or resisting them. Acceptance can be gentle. It can arrive as a calm acknowledgement rather than a painful awakening. When you allow yourself to see clearly, you reclaim something valuable, your emotional steadiness. You begin to understand that peace is not found in waiting for someone else to change, but in choosing honesty within yourself. And as this reflection moves forward, it opens space for a deeper sense of self-respect. One that quietly reshapes how you connect, how you trust, and how you care for your own heart. Eventually, a softer kind of strength begins to form, the kind that doesn't argue, chase, or demand clarity from those unwilling to offer it. It is the strength of knowing where you stand, even when someone else remains uncertain. This strength brings calm, not distance, and confidence without bitterness. You may start to notice how your energy shifts when you stop over-explaining your feelings or justifying your needs. Emotional honesty, when met with hesitation, teaches an important lesson. Understanding does not always require agreement, and closure does not always come from the other person. In this space, intention becomes easier to recognize. Not through confrontation, but through observation. You see how effort appears when it matters, and how absence explains what words never could. This awareness does not harden the heart, it refines it. What unfolds next is not loss, but clarity. A clearer sense of what you value, what you deserve, and what kind of connection truly supports your well-being. This clarity feels steady, grounded, and quietly empowering. As this reflection nears its final turn, it invites you to carry this understanding forward, not as a warning, but as wisdom that protects your peace and honors the depth of your emotional world. With this understanding, something gentle settles within you, a sense of trust in your own perception. You no longer feel the need to second-guess the signals you once felt but couldn't name. They now make sense, not as doubts, but as guidance shaped by experience. You may find that your expectations become clearer, not higher, but more honest. You begin to value openness over charm, steadiness over intensity. In doing so, you create room for connections that feel calm rather than confusing, nourishing rather than draining. This shift does not require you to close your heart. It simply teaches you where to place it with care. Emotional depth is a gift, and like all gifts, it deserves to be received with respect and presence. As this reflection comes to rest, it leaves you with something lasting. The reassurance that clarity is kind, self-respect is quiet, and inner peace grows when you choose to honor what you feel, without fear, without urgency, and without turning away from your own truth. In the quiet that follows clarity, you may notice how differently you breathe, how the mind softens when it is no longer tangled in uncertainty. This is the space where understanding becomes wisdom, not something learned in a moment, but something absorbed over time. You begin to see that emotional honesty is not about exposing everything at once, but about being true in each step you take. When you respect your own feelings, you naturally attract connections that meet you with the same sincerity. There is ease in this alignment, a feeling of being seen without effort. What once felt like confusion now serves as contrast. It shows you how peace feels when it is present, and how valuable it is to protect. You recognize that not every connection is meant to last, but every experience can leave you more grounded than before. This reflection ends not with answers about another person, but with confidence in yourself. A calm certainty that your emotional awareness is enough, your patience has meaning, and your future connections can be built on clarity, balance, and quiet trust in what feels true. There is a quiet dignity that comes with choosing awareness over assumption. It shows in how you listen, more closely to your inner voice and less to the noise of uncertainty around you. This dignity does not announce itself, it simply guides you toward what feels steady and sincere. As time passes, you may notice that your relationships begin to mirror this inner balance. Conversations feel lighter, intentions clearer, and emotional exchanges more grounded. You no longer feel pulled into guessing games or unspoken expectations, because you have learned the value of emotional transparency. What remains is not regret, but gratitude, for the insight gained, for the resilience discovered, and for the calm that replaces confusion. You understand now that emotional clarity is not about control, but about self-respect and thoughtful connection. And with that understanding, you carry forward a sense of peace that does not depend on another person's choices. It lives within you, steady and reassuring, reminding you that when you honor your truth, your path naturally becomes clearer. With time, this understanding settles into something deeper than thought, it becomes a way of being. You move through interactions with a softer awareness, noticing not just what is shared, but how it feels to receive it. This awareness helps you stay present without losing yourself. You may find that you no longer rush to interpret silence or overanalyze pauses. Instead, you allow space to exist without filling it with assumptions. In that space, truth has room to appear naturally, without pressure or expectation. There is freedom in this approach. Freedom from emotional guessing, from carrying unspoken weight, from wondering where you stand. You begin to trust that what is meant to feel supportive will not require constant interpretation. As this reflection gently concludes, it leaves you with a simple reminder: clarity is a form of kindness, both to yourself and to others. When you choose it, your emotional world becomes calmer, more balanced, and quietly aligned with what nurtures you most. In this calm awareness, you may notice how your sense of self feels more anchored than before. Decisions feel less rushed, emotions less tangled, and your inner dialogue more compassionate. This is the quiet reward of choosing understanding over uncertainty. You begin to recognize that meaningful connection does not ask you to shrink, wait, or wonder. It meets you where you are and grows alongside you, at a pace that feels steady and respectful. This realization brings relief, not longing, because it affirms what you already sensed within. What stays with you now is a gentle confidence. Not the kind that demands answers, but the kind that trusts time to reveal what aligns and what does not. You no longer measure your worth through another person's behavior, you measure it through how you care for your own well-being. And in this closing reflection, there is a quiet assurance: when you honor clarity, patience, and self-respect, you create space for connections that feel honest, balanced, and truly supportive of who you are becoming. As this understanding settles fully, it becomes less about remembering the past and more about moving forward with intention. You carry the lessons quietly, not as reminders of what was missing, but as guides for what feels right. There is a new gentleness in how you approach connection now. You listen without overextending, care without losing balance, and remain open without abandoning yourself. This balance is not learned overnight, it is shaped by reflection, patience, and trust in your own experience. What once felt like emotional uncertainty has transformed into discernment. You can sense when a connection feels mutual and when it feels uneven, and you honor that awareness without needing to explain it away. In this final moment of reflection, you are left with something steady and enduring, the confidence that emotional clarity is not something you wait for from others, but something you cultivate within yourself, and that this inner clarity will always guide you toward peace. With this clarity, your inner world feels less crowded and more intentional. Thoughts settle more easily, and emotions move through you without leaving confusion behind. You begin to appreciate how much peace can exist when you no longer wrestle with unanswered questions. You may notice that your attention shifts toward what feels nourishing, conversations that flow naturally, moments that feel grounded, and connections that honor mutual presence. There is a quiet satisfaction in choosing what supports your well-being, without needing external validation. This awareness allows you to remain open-hearted while staying rooted in self-respect. You understand now that emotional depth is not proven by endurance, but by how gently and honestly a connection can be held. And as this reflection gently lingers, it leaves you with a sense of calm assurance. When you choose clarity, balance, and thoughtful care, you create space for a life that feels steady, meaningful, and emotionally aligned. In the stillness that follows, you may notice how your sense of trust has shifted inward. You rely less on reassurance from others and more on the quiet confidence that comes from knowing yourself. This trust does not close you off, it steadies you. You begin to appreciate how relationships can feel when they are rooted in mutual clarity. There is less effort in explaining, less weight in waiting, and more ease in simply being present. This ease becomes your new reference point, gently guiding your choices. What once felt like emotional uncertainty now serves as contrast, helping you recognize sincerity when it appears. You carry this awareness without heaviness, understanding that each experience contributed to your growth in its own way. As this reflection draws to a close, it offers one lasting truth: when you honor your inner clarity, you naturally move toward connections that respect your depth, your time, and your emotional well-being, without struggle, without confusion, and with quiet peace.